In 1997, two companies stood at the exact same crossroad. One was an empire. 170,000 employees, 90% market share, a name so iconic it became a verb. Kodak moment didn't just describe a photo. It described a feeling. Consider the brand value for a moment. The theater that hosted one of popular culture's most prestigious events, the Academy Awards, was known as the Kodak Theater. That is how deep this name ran. The other was a startup. Born from a $40 late fee at a video rental store. No offices, no reputation, no guarantee of survival. Both saw the digital revolution coming like a meteor. Both had a choice. One chose comfort. The other chose pain. One no longer exists. The other is worth over $250 billion. But here's the part nobody talks about, the one that survived nearly destroyed itself in the process. This is not a story about technology. This is a story about identity. And the biological principle that separates survival from extinction. Before we talk about boardroom decisions and billion-dollar moves, I need to tell you about something happening inside your body right now. As you watch this, approximately 50 to 70 billion of your cells will die today. Don't worry, not because something went wrong. Because something is going exactly right. This process is called apoptosis, programmed cell elimination. Your body deliberately kills its own cells on a set schedule so that new, healthier ones can take their place. Old skin cells die so your skin can renew itself. Damaged cells are eliminated before they can cause harm. It might sound brutal, but it is the single most important mechanism keeping you alive. Now, here's where it gets truly terrifying. If a cell is not eliminated, if it ignores the signal to make way for something new, if it keeps growing, keeps consuming resources, keeps replicating the same old pattern, if it fails to meet the demands of changing conditions. There is a name for that. We call it cancer. Cancer is not a foreign invasion. It is your own system refusing to let go of what no longer serves the whole. Remember this. Because you are about to see it play out in two of the most famous companies in modern history. In our last signal, we talked about how Kodak saw the future and chose the past. But today, I want to go deeper. I want to show you why. Because Kodak was not stupid. Kodak was not blind. In many ways, Kodak was brilliant. And that is exactly what makes their story so dangerous. In 1975, a 24-year-old engineer named Steve Sasson built the world's first digital camera using Kodak's own resources, in Kodak's own lab. He brought it to management. They didn't just reject it. They buried it. They told him, and I quote, "That's cute, but don't tell anyone about it." Most people hear this story and think, how could they be so foolish? But put yourself in that room. You are a Kodak executive in 1975. Your company controls 90% of the American film market. Film sales, chemical processing, printing paper, this ecosystem generates billions of dollars every single year. And a young engineer walks in and says, "I have invented something that will make all of this obsolete." What he was really saying was, "I have invented the death of everything you are." This is the innovator's dilemma, a concept later defined by Harvard professor Clayton Christensen. The very thing that makes you successful becomes the reason you cannot change. Your greatest strength becomes your greatest cage. Kodak's identity was film. Not photography, film. Their factories, their patents, their supply chains, their workforce, their entire culture was built around a chemical process. Digital didn't just threaten their product. It threatened their identity. And here is the biological truth, an organism's priority is not survival. It fights hardest to remain what it already is. Kodak had the technology. They had the patents. They had the talent. They had the money. They had a 20-year head start on every competitor. But they could not kill the aging cell. They could not look at their film division, their golden goose, their pride, their identity, and could not say, "This must die so that we can live." So the cell kept growing. It consumed resources. It blocked innovation. It replicated the same patterns year after year. In 2012, Kodak filed for bankruptcy. The diagnosis? Corporate cancer. A company that refused to let go of what no longer served its survival. Now let me take you to a completely different room. A man named Reed Hastings returns a VHS tape to Blockbuster. It is overdue. The late fee, $40. For a movie he didn't even enjoy. Most people would complain and move on. Hastings asked a different question. What if there were no late fees? What if the entire model is wrong? That question became Netflix. Netflix started as a DVD by mail service. You pick a movie online, they deliver it to your door in a red envelope. No late fees. No driving to a store. Simple. It was not revolutionary. It was convenient. And as Darwin would tell you, convenience is an evolutionary advantage. By 2000, Netflix was growing but still small. Reed Hastings flew to Dallas and walked into Blockbuster's headquarters with an offer, buy us for $50 million. We will run your online division. The Blockbuster CEO reportedly laughed. $50 million for a DVD mail company? That was a rounding error in Blockbuster's budget. They had 9,000 stores. 60,000 employees. $6 billion in revenue. Why would a dinosaur worry about a mammal? By 2007, Netflix had 7.5 million subscribers. The DVD business was thriving. Profitable. Growing. And then Reed Hastings made a decision most CEOs would never make. He decided to kill it. Not because it was failing. Because it was succeeding. And he knew, the way a biologist knows, that the growth of the old cell would prevent the birth of the new one. Netflix launched streaming. At first, it was terrible. Limited content. Poor quality. Customers were confused. But Hastings understood something Kodak never did. The future does not arrive fully formed. It arrives incomplete and unconvincing. And by the time it is complete and convincing, it is too late to adapt. Kodak waited for digital to be perfect. Netflix launched streaming when it was terrible. That is the difference between extinction and evolution. But here is where the story turns brutal. In 2011, Hastings made a move that nearly destroyed everything. He announced Netflix would split into two companies, Quickster for DVDs, Netflix for streaming. And he raised prices significantly. The backlash was catastrophic. 800,000 subscribers left in a single quarter. The stock price fell 77%. From $300 to $65. Media called it the worst business decision of the decade. Saturday Night Live mocked them on national television. Netflix was bleeding. The board was panicking. Investors were running. This was Netflix's asteroid moment. And this is where Reed Hastings separated himself from every Kodak executive who ever lived. He did not hide behind pride. He did not blame the market. He said publicly, "I messed up. I owe everyone an apology." He reversed the Quickster decision. And he poured every available resource into streaming content. He adapted. Fast. Painfully. Publicly. The cell died. And the organism survived. In 2013, Netflix released House of Cards, its first original series. This was not just a show. It was a manifesto. Netflix was no longer a distribution company. No longer a DVD company. No longer even just a streaming company. It was a content company. An entertainment company. An entirely new species. Think about how many business models Netflix disrupted. DVD by mail. Licensing other people's content. DVD and Blu-ray rental. Each time, they performed apoptosis. Each time, it was painful. Each time, it was necessary. Today, Netflix operates in 190 countries, produces content in dozens of languages, and has over 260 million subscribers. Not because they were the biggest. Not because they had the most resources. Kodak had more of both. Because they chose not to remain what they were, but to become what they needed to be. Let me put these two stories side by side. Kodak invented the future. Then buried it. Netflix saw the future. Then became it. Kodak said, "We are a film company." Netflix said, "We are whatever we need to be." Kodak protected their revenue and paid the price by losing their relevance. Netflix sacrificed their revenue and secured their survival. Kodak waited for the perfect moment to change. Netflix changed when it was messy, painful, and terrifying. Kodak became a cancerous organism, nurturing a cell that refused to die. Netflix became a healthy, growing organism that chose renewal. The lesson here is not be like Netflix. Netflix nearly died. They made terrible mistakes. They lost customers, money, and credibility. The lesson is this. Survival is not about avoiding pain. It is about choosing the right pain. The pain of transformation over the comfort of denial and inaction. Evolution does not reward the strongest. It does not reward the smartest. It rewards the most adaptable. And real adaptation always demands a price. The question is whether you are willing to pay that price before the market forces you to. Today, approximately 50 billion cells in your body will die. Not as a failure. As a strategy. What part of your business, your career, your thinking needs to die so that something better can grow? What is the cell you have been turning a blind eye to as it slowly becomes cancer? That is your signal for today. If this resonated with you, like, subscribe, share, and if you have an opinion to share, I would be so happy. The sage has more patterns to reveal. In the next signal, we will explore why your brain is literally wired to lose money, and what 3,000 years of philosophy and modern neuroscience agree you should do about it. Until then, stay adaptive. Stay curious. And remember, no noise. Just signal.